later, and we will certainly send the recording to you. So good afternoon. My name is Roland Bullivant from Silwood Technology. I'm joined today by Nick Porter, our technical director, and we're going to talk briefly about harvesting metadata from enterprise applications for a variety of projects, whether that's data modeling, data warehousing, data integration, etc. So what we're hoping to achieve today is that if you've not come across Sapphire before, in the context of being able to see inside the black box of your ERP systems in terms of their data models, then you'll certainly see something that's a bit different today, and hopefully you'll be able to see how that might be of value to yourselves, and that you can take it forward with us after this session. So we're going to talk about the ERP metadata challenge quickly, and talk about what Sapphire does and how it supports organizations who are looking to understand more about the data models, data structures in their SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, and other applications. And then we're going to go into a brief demonstration of the project, and and then talk about next actions in terms of how we might be able to help you after that. If you have any questions, please do flag them up on the GoToMeeting message pad, and we will endeavour to answer them today. If we don't, then we'll get back to you as soon as we can afterwards. And we're hoping to conclude this in about 30-35 minutes, something like that. So hopefully we're not going to take up too much of your afternoon or morning. So just a little bit of context in terms of where we're coming from. We work with organizations who have applications from SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, and other vendors. And the reason that we do that is because we found over the years that these customers are challenged with a significant problem in terms of understanding the complexity of the underlying data models of those systems when they're trying to understand that in the context of their projects, or in terms of in the context of helping to communicate helping the communications between IT and the business, for example. And we have a software product called Sapphire, which we will show you shortly. But I just thought I'd take a moment to discuss some of the benefits of using this type of approach to application metadata harvesting or metadata discovery, whichever way you want to term it. And really, it helps to have a better understanding of enterprise metadata, really, which enables the things you would hope for, which is faster, more reliable project delivery, managing and reducing costs and higher productivity. And also, importantly, is to improve that communication between IT and the business. And some of our customers have told us that by being able to see and visualize how the data structures that are relevant to a particular project in an SAP system or a JD Edwards system, for example, are put together, that being able to share that with the business has certainly enabled communication and collaboration between those areas of the enterprise. Just a few brief use case examples. We have an aero structure manufacturer who were looking to identify tables in an SAP system that they needed for an SAP HANA data warehouse, and being able to find those very quickly helped them deliver that HANA implementation very, very fast. Another example is an electronics products distributor, that's RS Components over here in the UK, who were now able to gain a level of understanding of their SAP tables that they previously thought was impossible. And they also use Sapphire to help them migrate data from JD Edwards into SAP. Another example is a global personal care company, that's Procter & Gamble, who are using Sapphire to help them understand their SAP systems in the context of project governance and assurance and overall enterprise IT architectures. The international energy company is BP, where Sapphire was helping them play a part in delivering multi-country systems. Sorry, that's not BP at all. That's Statoil Fuel and Energy. I do beg your pardon. Sapphire played a part in enabling on-time delivery of multi-country operational data warehouses. What was the challenge they were facing was not only moving data, but identifying where the data was in the J.D. Edwards implementation that was replacing an SAP system. So the J.D. Edwards system was highly customized and required a tool or a product that enabled the data warehouse analysts to find the right tables and the right data models in order to know where to extract data from to put into an OBIEE environment for business intelligence and reporting. And the aircraft manufacturer is Boeing, who are using Sapphire to reduce the time that it takes their data architects, data analysts to find the data that they need for data migration. What they're doing is by implementing SAP, they still need to retain, I think it's something like 49 years worth of data on aircraft in that SAP system. So knowing where to put that data is extremely important and vital to them. So that's helping them do that, and they're able to one of the things they've achieved as well is to put some of those models into an enterprise portal using the Embarcadero products that allow them to share those models and that data with other parts of the business and other parts of IT, including governance and other areas. So you may not have heard of Sapphire or Silwood technology in the past. So these are some other examples of customers who've used our products. The reason I put this up is we are a small niche company, and customers normally like to know that they're not the first to test out our product. So it's well used and has a good pedigree, if you will. So what's the problem, the challenge that we're helping organizations solve? It's really answering that very basic question of where's my data? It's not what is my data, it's where is it? Now in a small system that you may have, a small application or a small package that you've built or implemented with maybe 50 or 100 tables, that might not be particularly difficult. However, in the SAP and Oracle and increasingly Salesforce environment, you have thousands, tens of thousands, or possibly even hundreds of thousands of tables, but you're only trying to look at a few of those. And you also need to look at the relationships, how those tables joined, how do they relate to each other, and as well as just the table names, what you're looking at, the physical names, you're also looking for descriptions and making sure that you can see any customizations. And typically in the past, this role has been fulfilled by, it's a sort of specialists only role, if you will. And the trouble with these applications of this size is they're impractical or even impossible to reverse engineer for two reasons. One is the sheer size of the data model you would extract, and secondly, the fact that in most package applications, the relationships between the tables, there's no primary and foreign key constraints but held in the database. It's all held in the application layer. So reverse engineering a database is of limited use, and I'll show you the results of that in a second, if you will. And there's very little in the way of discovery tools in applications. In fact, one of our customers in Australia were told by their SAP team that there is no way of finding the SAP data model in any sort of accessible format. And most organizations are always under time and budget pressure, which means that trying to find this stuff, which takes ages, is adding to that environment. So if you do reverse engineer something like an SAP system, you will end up something like this, which is of limited value to anyone who doesn't know the exact way that SAP is structured. And of course, there's no links or relationships between any of those tables. SAP has about 90,000 tables before you start customizing it. So the job then becomes virtually impossible to do manually or to do with a sort of standard modeling tool. That means that typically organizations have to approach it in a different way. So they might start to try to look to see whether there's any documentation, but that may not have brought in any customizations that have been done. They then may ask the technical specialists who may or may not understand the business context in which the questions are being asked. Typically they might try and manage multiple spreadsheets or hire expensive consultants to come in and do this work for them, which really ought to be able to be done perfectly satisfactorily and quickly internally. Some ETL type tools will provide you with a list of tables, which is great as long as you know which tables you're looking for and then how they're connected and how they relate to other tables. One of our customers, I've talked about them earlier, RS Components, used what they call informed guesswork to do a sort of trial and error approach, which meant that they were consistently under-delivering and over-running on their projects. And we also talked to an organization recently that were using Google to try to find relevant data models for their SAP systems, all of which are time-consuming and risky and unlikely to really deliver what you need. A better approach might be to use a metadata harvesting solution. So a software-based approach which automates the discovery of the metadata, that brings in all the table information, which means that you would have everything at your fingertips. That brings in the customizations, which means that you know you're working with the data model as implemented. And it brings in the relationships and an application hierarchy. So you've got you have alternative start points, you have full search capabilities to look and scope and find exactly what you need now, rather than having to wait for somebody else to find it for you. And some other useful points that might be handy in a solution for doing this would be to have something like a row count for each table to tell you whether there was any data in a row, data in the tables, which means they may or may not be used. And then to be able to share that information both internally, perhaps to give yourselves a single source of application metadata across different projects and teams, and also to integrate and export out to third-party tools, modeling tools, such as those from Embarcadero, CA, SAP, IBM, etc. And not surprisingly, that's exactly what what Sapphire does. So we automatically and quickly harvest and discover all the metadata, including customizations from the applications, and then provide a powerful set of scoping and introspection tools, which are usable by data specialists. So there's no need for people to understand ABAP or understand the application as such. As long as they're data specialists and understand what it is they're looking for, as you'll see in the demo in a moment, typically people can see those, can find their way around those large, complex and impenetrable data models quite quickly. And then what we do with Sapphire is that we're then able to export those subject areas out to a variety of third-party tools and solutions. So just quickly, I'm going to spend a bit of time on a little bit more detail on Sapphire, and then I'm going to hand over to Nick, who's going to show you through the product. So first of all, the source applications that Sapphire supports are SAP Business Suite, SAP BW, and SAP Business Suite on HANA. So effectively, that's anything, if you're an SAP shop that we're talking to today or on the call today, any of those applications that SAP provide that are ABAP-based, we can support. In the Oracle world, we have pre-built connections and application metadata extraction for eBusiness Suite, PeopleSoft, Siebel, and JD Edwards Enterprise One. We've also recently delivered Salesforce extractor as well via to support some customers that were asking for Salesforce. And we also provide a new product called what we've called ETL for metadata, which is a mechanism for finding and identifying or once you've found and identified where the metadata is in another packaged application, then being able to map that, much as you would with an ETL tool, map that metadata into our own meta model within Sapphire. So as an example, we worked on the Microsoft Dynamics package, and within 4 days we had the metadata from Microsoft Dynamics in Sapphire, fully usable, searchable, scopable, exportable, etc. And that means now that we have that for Microsoft Dynamics. We don't need to do that job again. So any customer that has that package, we can also support, and we can do the same with virtually any other packaged application. Once the metadata is in Sapphire. That's where the discovery and scoping aspect comes in, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, and you'll see some of it. And then we export the results of our scoping out to modeling, data warehouse, data integration tools, and projects. The key thing here is to understand that we're not providing reference models in any way. We are only extracting exactly what has been implemented at your organization by your SI or yourselves. And what we're trying to do all the time is to make it easier and simpler for you to find your way through that model, those large enterprise models, to find the maybe 10, 15, 20 tables you need for any particular project that you're working on. So just a summary of the functionality: we reverse engineer, in effect, the application metadata, including the customizations, and finds all the tables, the fields, the views, descriptions, etc., logical and physical names, so that you can search through meaningful business terms rather than having to remember what the physical names of the tables are. We automatically discover all the relationships in the application module hierarchy, and then there's an interface to search and filter and compare and visualize that. We do provide pre-configured subject areas for some of the products. These still work off your system as implemented, and I think Nick might show you one or two of those. And the two other key points to remember about Sapphire is the speed with which it works. So in order once you connect to an SAP system, the whole job of extracting the metadata would take around 3 hours. That's for a large SAP system. The other applications are quicker. And once that metadata is in the Sapphire environment, you have the ability to do all of the analysis and scoping work and exporting work that you want to do. So you get started right away, which means your analysis can be done in days rather than months. And it's extremely accurate, of course, so you can trust what you're looking at because you're working with your system as implemented. So just before I hand over to Nick, here's a couple of analyst and customer comments for you to look at while we're swapping over. So thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much, Roland. This is Nick Porter. I'm just going to give you a taste, really, of the product itself. Given the time we've got available, we can't really go through all the capabilities, but just give you a feel for what the product's about. So I'm just going to switch into making Sapphire the active application. And Roland did show you a screen layout including this, and this is the main screen within the Sapphire environment. When you start the product up and open up a particular system, then this is a set of clickable tiles which allow you to choose some of the main features in the system. And you can see it's organized into 3 chunks. At the top there is what we call a discover phase, in the middle scope, and at the bottom deliver. And the discover then, that's about the process of extracting the metadata from the ERP system. So any of the systems that Roland talked about, we pull the metadata out by attaching to their data dictionary. And we look into the data dictionary of those products, and we pull out the data definitions, including the logical names for objects, the relationships, the indexes, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Some of it's specific to a particular application. And then once that's done, you've got a series of tools in the middle, what we call a scoping tool, which allow you to search what's been extracted. We're going to look at some of those in just a second. And then finally at the bottom, you've got this option we call deliver, where you could say, well, now I've scoped my set of tables down into more manageable groups, which we call subject areas, I like to make that available in other environments. And often that's a modeling tool, something like Obin or ER Studio or Power Designer. There's a bunch of products we interface to allow visualization of these models. So this is, we're going to start off looking at a SAP system, and this is one of the things we've got is what we call a multi-object search. So this is often quite useful when you want to try and get an idea of what's available within the system. And as its name implies, what it's doing is it's allowing you to perform a text search across a range of different object types. So rather than just looking at tables or looking at programs or particular functions, it's saying, let's see what we've got in the repository with this string. And that's often going to be some kind of business concept you want to look for. You might want to say, well, I'd like to look for something like bill of materials and find what's available in terms of metadata within my system. I'm going to choose customer payment. You know, that's often very important to a lot of customers, a lot of users. So let's look for any objects in this SAP system that have got the string customer payment somewhere in the description. You can see it's going off and building up a little list of what it finds. And there's a bunch of tables at the top. Those blue icons, they're base tables. So you can see one here. There's a base table called Customer Payment History. And then we double click on that. We can see the structure of that table. So we're looking at the actual table itself now. And any of those of you who know SAP will know that this first column here is like the technical name, the internal name for the column. And then we've got the descriptive name, which again we pull out of the SAP system, telling you what each of these attributes is. And we also have at the bottom right here, we have this sort of long definition. Again, this is pulled out of the SAP system. So for instance, if we go to one of the other attributes, days in arrears, you can see it's actually got quite a lot of text there. Average days in arrears determined for all line items played, blah, blah, blah. So often that's quite nice to be able to get that manufacturer's definition of what the actual attribute is all about. So let's go back to the search. We can see some tables, but then down here, there is some actual functionality now. There's something we call the SAP program tree. And the SAP program tree has a hierarchy of SAP modules and programs and transactions, and it's found a set of entries within that tree based upon the customer payment search we've done. And as my eye goes down, I can see a program. This one here has got program, customer payment history program. So we were looking at a table. Here's an actual program, and if I double click on that, it will take me, expand that hierarchy, and I can now see customer payment history program, and then these blue icons here, these are the base tables that are used by that program. So each of the blue icons is a base table. In fact, the one we looked at earlier on, customer payment history table, that's there as well. So these tables are either referenced or updated by that particular program. And again, we're getting this when we do the extraction from SAP. We're not deriving this or kind of making it up in any way. We're pulling this information out of the SAP system. It's a very powerful where-use capability. So one of the things we can do with this is we can make what we call a subject area out of it. Let's make a new subject area, and let's call this customer payment history. And a subject area is just a folder where we can group together tables. So I'm going to take that program and I'm going to drag it across into the subject area, and it will pull with it the set of tables associated with that program. And you can see at the top there's there's just 12 tables associated with this particular program. Quite a nice, tight little set of programs. And then, tables, forgive me. And then what we can do, we can use the export wizard. So we'll find that customer payment history subject area we just created, and we'll pull it into the export area. And then we can say, well, how would we like to export this? What would we like to do with this set of tables? And we can push this out into any of the tools that Sapphire can interface to. It also has a very simple built-in diagramming capability of its own, the Sapphire ER diagrammer. And for this, I'm just going to choose that one. I'm going to go through the steps. And so you can now see a entity relationship diagram based upon the set of tables that I just created. And there's a number of options with the diagrammer as to how you represent it, the different levels of representation of the model, but it just gives you a feel about how you can very quickly go from a simple search to making a data model. So let's, I don't want to focus just on SAP. Let's go and find another system. Let's go and look for a J.D. Edwards system now. So each entry in this list, the repository manager, is a different system. And now I'm going to switch into a J.D. Edwards system. And just to show you some of the other capabilities of the product, I could do the same kind of thing with SAP. Rather than looking at the multi-object search, which we started off doing, I could just look at all the tables in the system. And J.D. Edwards has a lot less than a SAP system. You can see at the bottom there. There are 4,825 tables in this particular JDE, which is fairly typical. Again, you've got fairly unhelpful table names. Very difficult to tell from those table names what's actually in the table. And then you've got this much more helpful descriptive name. And one of the things we also can do, if you look over on the right, there's a row count. So when we pull the metadata out, we also take a snapshot of the number of rows in the table. So we could go to the advanced search and say, well, we only want to see tables with at least one row in them. And if we do that, you can see that that's come down quite significantly. So of the 4,800 tables, only in our particular system, only 1,837 have actually got data in them. And another quite useful thing is the number of relationships. So you can see these columns here, number of child tables, number of parent tables. So it's telling us that for each table in the list, the number of directly related tables, the number of child tables, the number of tables receive a foreign key from the particular table, the number of parent tables, the number of foreign keys arriving in the table, if you like. And one of the things that you can do is sort that result set by the number of relationships. And this is something particularly unique to Sapphire, is its ability to do this. And when you do that, it's often that the most important tables in the system arrive at the top of the list. They kind of come up like cream to the top. And I guess that's because they are used in lots of places in the model. They are parents to lots of other things, and therefore they tend to be more important. And any of you out there who know J.D. Edwards know library list, business unit master, account master, these are quite important tables in the SAP, in the J.D. Edwards system. There's asset master. And another thing this helps us to do is you can understand now that J.D. Edwards tends to use this term master for sort of master data information. So what we could also do, perhaps we'll say, let's subset this list into those which contain the string master, and that brings the list down to 228. And you can see now we've got business unit master, carrier master, asset master, application mod, a whole bunch of tables which if we were doing some kind of master data project might look worthy of further analysis. I'm very conscious of the time here. I just want to show you one more system. If anybody would like to see particular systems in more detail, then please do contact us and we can arrange a one-to-one demo. Let's look at a Salesforce system. Roland mentioned that we added Salesforce relatively recently. Last year we added Salesforce capability to the product. So let's look at a Salesforce system. We pull the metadata out of Salesforce using the Salesforce API. Salesforce is a much smaller system than the other packages that we deal with. So this is a customized Salesforce system. So Salesforce delivers a set of standard tables. This is customized, so you can see even with customizations, there's actually only 296 tables in it. But the way you manipulate it is exactly the same as the way we looked at that when we looked at J.D. Edwards. So we've still got the number of relationships. Where it's slightly different, we now can see the table type. There's a standard and custom. So the standard tables are ones delivered by Salesforce themselves, and custom ones are ones that have been added to this particular instance. So what we could also do, we could say, well, I'd like to just filter this down into the custom tables. And you can see there's 58 tables added to this particular system. But again, the way we would look at that, if we want to drill into a particular entity, we can drill into that and see the columns. And like with the other systems, these are foreign keys. So again, we can see how the tables are related to other tables in the system. Okay, that's pretty much all we wanted to show you today. If you have any questions, then if you could use the GoToMeeting text facility to ask those, and I think we have got at least one of those based upon yeah, so Eric Bless is asking a question. How do you determine logical names by which the business references objects? I think I did mention that, Eric. So the logical names we pull out of the data dictionary, along with all the other information that we're pulling as well. So in the case of SAP or J.D. Edwards or Salesforce, as I've shown you here, that descriptive name, the one you can see on the screen at the moment, we're getting that from the data dictionary. If you looked into the system catalog, if you use something like a modeling tool to reverse engineer the underlying database, you wouldn't get those names. Those names only exist in the application layer, if you like, in the data dictionary of each of these packages. And that's really why we've got a market. That is our market, is making those definitions available, and also the relationships as well. The joins between tables are not defined in the database. They're defined in the data dictionary of each package, and that's where we're getting that information from. And of course, we'd also get the changes that have been made at your site. So regardless of which package you're using, we would, as Roland mentioned, we wouldn't be delivering a reference model of SAP or J.D. Edwards or PeopleSoft, whatever it might be. You reverse engineer using Sapphire your own metadata, including any of the customizations that you've made. I think that's the only question that we've got. I would just now want to thank the attendees from myself and Roland. We have recorded the session, so if anybody would like to receive a recording of the session, then please email us and let us know. And otherwise, then thanks again for your attendance and have a good day. Thanks.